anything
The
about
first
any
time
of
I
them,
had
so.
Stella, it was lukewarm and it tasted... Not Luca. It was lukewarm and it tasted like piss. I hated it.
Luke is just like...
Well, to me, it's all the same, right? I cannot differentiate between any of them. So to me, it's all just nope.
I started off with really hoppy beer, which is incredibly like bitter. So I think I immediately got the taste for like differences.
Right. I guess. I don't know.
My dad's also a huge like connoisseur of the alcoholic beverages, so I guess I get it from him.
I feel like that's a really cute nickname for like alcoholics.
Yeah.
Connoisseur of alcohol.
Have you ever
It's always a drunkard.
Have you ever watched South Park?
I've watched a couple episodes, not a whole lot.
Oh my
I'm
god.
more of a Family Guy kind of guy.
Literally. It's like, you're drinking... Oh, man. Have you ever watched South Park? Have you watched the new stuff? Like, with Randy? He's like, I'm having a tasting with, like, where I drop the vodka into the wine and I drink it. It's called a smorgasbord and it's very cultural.
Yeah, I
And he drops the pitcher of... Pardon?
I haven't seen a lot of the new stuff,
Oh,
but...
okay.
And on that note, gentlemen, shall we get started?
Oh, did you start it?
We've been live for the past minute and a half.
Oh.
I literally said, and we are... Anyways. Yes, so ladies and gentlemen, we are back once again with the newest episode of the 501st Podcast. Joined again, once again, by our good friends, Luca, Rob. How are you both? How's
Hello.
life?
Like, good friends. That's pretty, on the
We
nose.
can get into some pretty interesting names if you'd like to. But yes, our good friends, Luca and Rob. How are you guys both? You guys are good? You guys having a good evening? You guys having a good night?
Yeah, I got ready for Star Wars. I played SWTOR today, so,
There you go.
Pretty
Playing
pumped.
some Old Republic.
Yeah.
I like it.
What class are you?
I'm Sith Inquisitor.
Sith Inquisitor.
Yeah.
I just got to level 4.
But are you a Sith Lord?
I am a Sith Lord.
A Sith Lord?
I have, I play mostly as the Imperial Agent. That's my favorite.
I want to do like a bounty hunter.
Bounty Hunter's
something.
good, too. I like
And
that.
speaking of bounty hunters, newest episode of Book of Boba Fett.
Wow, you really are.
I am keeping you two on track
today.
today. But yeah, newest episode of Book of Boba Fett dropped today, guys. Episode 5. We're going to talk about it. A lot of interesting things.
I'm not doing this summary.
It's more like the prequel to Mandalorian.
Yeah. So a Book of Boba Fett episode, which actually has 0 appearances of Boba Fett.
Isn't that just like
It's a very interesting thing. So let's get started.
the worst?
Rob, you've been doing the summary a lot. Lucas said he don't want to do it, so I guess I'll do the summary for now, and you guys can fill in whatever I
You have to earn your keep.
earn my keep. This is my podcast.
Yeah.
I have
All right,
supplied the. Never mind.
Go right ahead.
I supplied the drinks. I
Right.
supplied the.
But we
barely
attract the
supply.
audience. We attract the audience is the thing, you know?
Whoa! I like to think that I'm a contributing part of. Anyways, summary Book of Boba Fett. So, first things first. They don't even bother trying to conceal it or hide it. Mandalorian has returned. The second coming of the Mando has returned. Or I guess third coming, because there's 2 seasons already. Anyways, wow, I'm here for Luca.
Aw.
Thanks.
It's okay. The main character's never anybody's favorite, apparently.
Luca is the best girl. I would agree.
How does that make you feel?
I am the best girl, objectively speaking.
Anyways, so
It's a factual statement.
first scene open. I am keeping this train going.
You are?
Where it's going.
But so far,
we
it's
don't
been
want
a
to do
train
that.
wreck.
I'll just leave.
Austin's like the Japanese train conductors, you know, he's got to be on
I prefer
time.
German train conductor, but that's beside the point.
Can we get
That was a
more,
joke.
Can we get further into that? Maybe we should explain to the younger audience.
Let's not, and just say we did. Anyways, first scene opens up, and we get Mando in this kind of butcher shop, butcher back
Deli.
alley,
It's a-
butcher.
it's a butcher
It's
shop.
a butcher shop. Okay, he shows
You
up.
don't need to sugarcoat. We saw dead animals lying from hooks.
Sure.
Hanging from hooks.
Anyways, and as we know, animals aren't people. Go screw yourself, PETA.
Wow.
Moving
Well, those
forward.
dog faces got butchered.
Anyway, so
continue.
he shows up and he's here to collect a bounty, and he does with a lot of success. He says the infamous line of "I can bring you in warm, or I can bring you in cold." the group of these dog-face-looking aliens basically jump him, and out comes the Darksaber, and I slowly weep tears of happiness. As he does so, there's a large fight ensues. Mando basically wrecks all of them, but actually ends up slashing himself with the Darksaber. Go get some lightsaber training, you dolt.
Well, he's gonna see Grogu next episode.
Yeah, exactly. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be all good. He gets his bounty, decapitates him, and just kind of carries his head around in a bag.
As one does.
Exactly, as one does. He eventually returns to the person who gave him the bounty and gives the head and says, okay, give me the information I want. The information that he's looking for, of course, is where the hell the rest of the Mandalorians are. Hashtag decapitated, I agree, and we should see more of it in Star Wars.
It wasn't shown on screen, though.
Decapitation, look,
they never
it might
showed
as well
the
have
head.
been.
They didn't have to.
It was an implied.
Decapitation, A-OK. Slave 1, no. We don't do that here.
At least they're drawing a line. It's not a very straight line. It's not a very good line.
It's a circle. It's not even a line. Anyway.
Well, technically, a circle's an infinite amount of lines.
Moving forward!
This is good.
And it turns out that there has been 2 survivors of the Mandalorian Purge from Mandalorian Season 1 that have been camping out, I guess, in the spaceport underneath, but not really underneath the
Alpha
city.
Halo?
Yeah, exactly. Head or it didn't happen. Agreed. God, I love chat.
They have a better moral freaking compass than Disney does.
Agreed. Anyways, so he goes in this kind of spaceport / airlock kind of thing, and Lady Shax and Brother Shax? I don't know how else to call the other guy. Yeah.
His name is Paz.
Vizsla.
Sure, Luke, it's Paz, alright?
It is Paz.
Brother Shax sounds cooler.
You said Brother Shax very drawn out, and you looked at me.
Yes.
As if you wanted
because it looked like you wanted to say something.
No, it didn't. I was completely content, but like I assumed you wanted me to, or I don't, whatever.
It's
Call him whatever you like.
Anyways.
Jim. His name is Jim.
His name is Jim now. Jim Vizsla.
Jim Vizsla.
So we get the armor, she's back in action, and we see Mando kind of, testing out the Darksaber and dueling with it a little bit. And you can really tell that this thing weighs, at least a good 50 pounds.
Like it doesn't weigh the way a sword should weigh.
Yeah, he's, two-handing this thing, barely picking it up off the ground or whatever. Kind of reminds me of, a King Arthur feel or whatever. It's for whoever pulls the sword from the stone kind of thing, and no one can.
Shall behold the power of Thor, yeah.
Yeah, basically. Look, I'm sure Stan Lee got some inspiration from Camelot for that line of thinking. But yeah, and basically the armor is like, hey, stop fighting the blade. Let the blade and you become one, basically. It'll make it easier to fight with it. However, brother Jim Vizsla, Brother Shax, is like, you are not worthy, son. And he tries to fight him for
Odin
it.
Shax, more like.
Oh, yeah, no kidding. And he decides to say, you know what, I will duel you for that Darksaber. And they do. They end up fighting, and Mando kind of gets his ass handed to him for, the majority of the fight. Until the end, where he ends up, holding a knife to the guy's throat.
Listen, he was already, getting his ass kicked by Lady Shax. So,
yeah, that's fair.
Frickin' Jimmy over there had a good little advantage over him.
And the injury to the leg as well.
Yeah, but that was healed up.
Look, it's no back to tank. All right, it's a spray on.
It was back to spray on. Didn't you watch the ad? Come on.
This podcast sponsored you by. I'm kidding.
Speaking of
sponsors. Anyways, so it continues. He ends up winning the duel. Mando keeps retain of the Darksaber. However, there is a moment where Lady Shax turns to Brother Shax, and this is what we're calling them wrong.
Okay, fine.
Look, get on board the train or leave.
Well, no, I disagree though, because he doesn't have horns on his helmet. The main reason we called her Lady Shax is because she has horns on her helmet, just like Lord Shax.
He's got little tidbits of stuff.
I don't think so.
Does he?
I don't think so.
Kind of. He's got the little pokey things.
Are you sure?
Oh, we'll go back and review.
What is it, Darth
Let's
Maul?
watch this again. Let's stop the podcast, watch it again, we'll come back to this.
Exactly. And basically she asks Brother Shax, have you ever taken off your helmet as a good little Mandalorian boy does? And he says, yeah. He says, no, I haven't. And then she turns to Mando and says, have you kept your helmet on like a good little Mandalorian boy? He says...
she said those exact words, by the way. For the record.
No, I haven't. And she's like, begone, heretic. I mean, I'm pretty sure Brother Shax literally calls him...
she turned into a space marine and started... heretic.
What? But I'm pretty sure Brother Shax calls him an apostate, and I'm like, Jesus!
He's like, leave.
Like, it's literally...
Is there any way I can atone leave apostate?
What's the definition of that word, though?
It's like someone who's been excised from the religion. Or like a non-believer.
A non-believer.
I will. You know what?
I feel like that's two different things.
Let me pull up the exact definition. I'm being put on a watch list, by the way.
Wait, what?
For looking at the definition of an apostate.
You can look up,
I've definitely been put on the list, though, for the last Mechaniophilia, whatever it was. A person who renounces a religious or political belief or principle, abandoning a religious or political belief or principle. So, okay, cool.
So like a sort of like
their actions are heretical, but they haven't crossed the line to full-blown heresy.
Well,
They've
I
just
think,
been exiled.
I think heresy would be going against your religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're not like Chaos Space Marines. They're just like on the edge of the warp. You know what I'm saying?
I suppose
they've walked up to the edge of the heretic cliff, but they haven't leapt off yet.
Well,
anyway,
right.
Go on, Logan.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Go on.
And anyways, the show continues, and he basically goes like, "What can I do to basically atone for my sins?" And she's like, "Go to this place under Mandalore, even though Mandalore's in
the living mines of Mandalore."
Sounds like some Lord of the Rings shit.
The living mines of
Moria.
She said,
exactly.
Listen, he can go there too, and I'll be pretty damn happy.
And like Gandalf is just like, "Who are you?" I am Mandalore the Wise.
I can bring the Balrog in live, or I can bring it in cold. And sorry, warm. My bad.
Very, very warm.
My bad.
Because the Balrog is a hot boy.
Yeah, he's pretty hot.
He's pretty hot. And so it continues. He leaves, and from there... Oh, did I not put this in? Hold on. We are... Whoops. Anyways. It continues, and he basically goes out to say, hey, cool, I'll go do this, but first, I gotta go to Tatooine. Because the message about a replacement Razor Crest since my old ship got blown up, which I'm not gonna lie, completely forgot about that plot point.
But the Razor Crest got
blown up.
Totally forgot about that. Too.
They got on board that other ship. What was it called again? No, I'm kidding.
Okay. It was just like
no chuckles. All right, I tried. I do my best for comedy here, folks.
Yeah, you should be ashamed.
Yeah, I probably should. But yeah, and he ends up on Tatooine, where we get to see the resurgence of an old prequel ship, one of the old Naboo starships.
Just in case
that's
you didn't
kind
catch
of
on.
Yeah. hence the thing you're seeing on screen right now.
For those of you who don't see him, he's pointing at his screen right now, as if you are retarded. Sorry, my bad. My bad.
I'm slipping up already.
As if you are a bad word, and
exactly. But yeah, no. They repair the ship with the help of the old mechanical lady from, again, Mandalorian. If you haven't seen that, go watch it. Good show, good times, good fun. Especially if you like tiny green aliens, go check it out. But yeah, then from there he takes it out for a test flight where it gets pulled over basically by two New Republic X-Wings, where they're like, hey, license and registration please, basically.
You think that was Dave Filoni's kind of, this is stupid kind of thing, kind of poking fun at the whole I need license and registration and I can't beef up my car and all
highly
that crap.
doubt.
So he's disgruntled that he can't do illegal modifications to his car.
To his vehicle.
Right. I guess maybe.
I am a Disney executive. I don't get
the law does not apply to me.
The episode continues, and they're like, "Hold on." And one of the starfighters is like, "Hold on. don't I know you from somewhere? And Amanda's like, no. And he's like, no, didn't you used to have a Razor Crest ship? And weren't you on some planet that had, like, some, like, Imperial, like, leanings or whatever? And he's like, peace, and just, like, guns the ship.
So what were they referring to? Because why did he gun it?
There's a, I won't go into it too much, but basically there's an episode of The Mandalorian where they think he has, like, some sort of Imperial leanings or whatever, because he took meetings with some old Imperial goons, and the Republic kind of shows up, and since he's kind of like guilty by association kind of thing.
Not only that, he explicitly went into a New Republic prison ship and broke out two of the inmates as well.
True, I forgot about that.
Which is kind of illegal.
Yeah.
So
no, it's fine.
I'm a Mandalorian. Right. I don't believe in illegalness. Weapons are part of
illegal. Illegal actions are part of my
religion. He used his ship to do that, so I think that's where they sort of pegged him for it.
True. And excuse me.
Look, he took down Moff Gideon. He should be exempt.
It's fine. He's good to go. Luke, talk to your sister for me. Please. Then from there, he kind of guns it. He returns to Tatooine surface back to the old mechanical lady, where Fennec Shand, who has been Boba's right hand, is waiting for them.
But guess who doesn't show up?
Boba Fett! The one guy! Anyways, he shows up, and she shows up, and she's like, hey, you want some money? And Boba. And Mando's like, well, depends. You got a job for me? And so Fennec's like, hey, Boba needs some muscle. Do you want to come on board the group?
The gang?
The good old gang that's actually a criminal underworld organization. But it's fine. And from there, he says, yeah, and it's on the house. Just let me go pay a visit to my little man. My little green friend.
A little friend.
Because Lady Shax built him some armor.
Jesus,
Rob, you are on a roll.
Well, we don't know what she built him yet.
It's true.
Chainmail, definitely. I was kind of hoping it would be a
light. It looked like chainmail.
I was kind of hoping it would be like a lightsaber.
Well, what's
that would have been awesome.
In Lord of the Rings?
I feel like Luke could be like, get that out of my sight. You build your own in this household.
No, but Rob,
or at least parts.
Wasn't there a part in Lord of the Rings? Is it when they visit Galadriel? I think. Or who gives?
Do tell.
Frodo gets the chainmail. I think, right?
Oh, the Frodo. Frodo gets the chainmail from Bilbo, who gets the chainmail from Thorn.
Right. Okay, sorry, I'm confusing that up. But yeah, I don't know. It just reminded me of that.
They do actually refer to it in the books as ringlets.
Ooh.
But that's just what it's called.
Which makes sense.
That is what it's called.
Because they're literally like ringlets.
That's just a medieval name.
But reading that and understanding where
I don't know what that happened.
I'm sorry.
Rob picked up a chip and
I'm like moving it around,
swung it, and like parts of the chip came flying off.
I have to throw it back into the bowl and talk like a normal person.
Exactly.
Reading the books and actually and then watching the movie and like Gandalf explains that he's like a set of silver rings. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh. You're not talking about like a set of rings, that go on the. You're talking about the chainmail that Frodo is currently wearing, as you pass through this deadly mine. Okay.
Anyways, back to a superior franchise.
Excuse me.
Rob, we've had this conversation.
I agree.
Lord of the Rings will last.
You yourself have said that Star Wars edges out Lord of the Rings, not by much, but it does.
Hold on.
It does.
It does. That's the correct opinion. Said every
authority. Well, it's hard to compare the two.
Yeah, it is
fantastical.
I'm trying right now,
I think you've said that Star Wars does a better job at individual storytelling for each of its characters than Lord of the Rings done. Although Lord of the Rings and Star Wars have a really good competitive spirit in terms of its lore, because I know there's a whole shit ton of stuff.
I disagree with that.
Anyways.
I think Lord of the Rings has a more cohesive lore, and it's not bogged down by a bunch of crap.
Yeah, but I think Star Wars has a more expansive lore, though.
Anyways,
sure,
getting
but
back
that's because it's one guy,
right?
Which is Lord of the Rings, and then it's like an entire company, which is Star Wars. So obviously they're going to have a more expansive lore, but I think the Lord of the Rings is not only more intimate because he cared so much. I'm sorry, that's the word I'm going to use.
We're going to get into it real quick.
Get the. I'm trying.
It's fine.
Anyways, I just think it's good for different reasons.
Fair enough. So let's talk about what we liked, what we didn't like. Let's start off with the good stuff. Luca, what did you like about this episode? See, because Rob has a beer in his mouth.
What did I once again, I thought the the set design I think is on point. I think the prop actors at ILM do a really good job, or not prop actors, sorry, the prop designers at ILM do a really good job, because you see stuff like the butcher shop or like the Starliner, right? They sort of translate these mundane things that you see in everyday life into sort of a Star Wars version, and it feels similar enough to be recognizable, but it still has that sort of Star Wars flair,
right?
Which I thought is really cool. So I like that. I don't know how I feel about the Halo style like ring world. Like I understand that it's like technologically viable. I don't know. It just seems kind of like
weird
to me, right? Because and it's kind of funny because Star Wars does have examples of artificial rings, but usually they're around planetary objects, right? Sort of like the rings of Saturn, but made out of metal and like Durasteel, right? So having it just be in the middle of nowhere, is just kind of weird to me.
Fair enough.
I don't know. That's just a personal thing. I don't know how I feel about that. But yeah, I enjoyed the set design. I enjoyed Mando coming back, obviously. I thought that was cool. And I think the fights have a lot of like sort of gravity to them, right? They're not like super fast paced, but that's okay because it feels more like weighted down, I guess you could say, than like opposed to like the Jedi, right? Which it makes sense. And what else did I like? I like
any highlight for you? Anything that really stood out for you?
I like the Jawas. I think they're pretty cool. So
Jawas are back. All right.
Yeah. Anytime they show up,
we found out that old mechanical ladies had some bumping uglies.
Go there.
Or can I say bumping furries with the Jawas?
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
Very hairy.
That was such a weird thing to put in there.
I think the highlight.
Don't tell me you wouldn't like to get it on with a Jawa. Come on.
See, that's exactly what I'm going to tell you.
I think the highlight for me in the episode, aside from the Jawas, obviously, is the flashback where they show the bombing of Mandalore. I thought that was really cool.
Actually really cool.
I think
you made a good point.
More like the nuking of Mandalore.
Well, it's the same diff.
Sure,
you made a good point about the droids and how they wouldn't do that. They would just send the regs in.
Yeah, I feel like they wouldn't
send the droids in. That's a very good point.
So just for our audience at home who's listening right now, there's a scene in the episode where there's a flashback to Mandalore, and the Empire is just bombing the shit out of the planet, and they send droids to, like, I guess, search for survivors.
Search and destroy kind of deal.
Yeah, like with the probe droids from Empire Strikes Back.
Which is such a cool shot. Just why would they use the droids?
Yeah, why not just put stormtroopers?
The probe droids make sense, but
I could be wrong, but I think it might be like an homage to Terminator, maybe, because there's something very similar to that. I could be wrong. I have no idea.
They do
this is completely out of left field, you know. But yeah, I don't think they'd use droids, especially not those droids, the K2SO ones, because those are mostly like technical droids, right?
But I guess I'm gonna try and be apologetic to it. But like,
yes,
be an apologetic, whatever.
Be an apostate.
Whatever. Considering the ground was heavily like burned. So maybe that's why they put the droids in, because like there was fire
everywhere,
just everywhere. Like I wouldn't go down there as a reg.
Maybe I don't, because
unless there was a lightsaber behind my back, which most likely that probably was a thing.
Well, maybe we'll see.
I always imagined that the Siege of Mandalore, if they really want to go, I know Star Wars has a few Vietnam parallels, but if they really want to go like super into it, I always imagined the Siege of Mandalore had the Empire using sort of like gunships in a sense, right? So similar to how I don't want to get too much into it because it's not very appropriate.
Like mowing down.
Yeah, so sort of like the Huey door gunners from the Vietnam War, sort of.
Right. So like using like the clone gunships and like just kind of
mowing everything.
I don't know if the clone gun. That's an interesting question. I do like the design of the clone gunships. I just don't know if they'd be used a lot. But I do know for sure. I don't know if you remember. There's a different gunship that appears later on in the Clone Wars, specifically in the episodes where Ahsoka's running away from the police on Coruscant.
I know what you're talking about.
That gunship,
where they have the giant light attached to it.
Yes.
Yeah, that was such cool.
So that gunship is, I'm pretty sure, in canon as well, because it does appear in Jedi Fallen Order, and in Jedi Fallen Order, it is specifically used for dropping troops off. So I think in canon, that is the successor to the LAAT gunship from the Clone Wars, right?
But aren't they the same model? It just had a
no. It's
spotlight?
It's a lot.
Oh, really?
They might have used those as well, but there is a unique. I'll show you a picture later.
Please do.
I'll find a picture so you guys can keep
neat.
talking. But yeah, that's the successor. So I always imagine they would use that one, which is a little bit more smaller.
Here's
a little
my
bit more
question:
nimble.
when the Empire is coming down to do like the occupation of Mandalore, where they're just nuking the shit out of it, or if they do something similar to like Vietnam-style warfare, would the Mandalorians engage in guerrilla-style warfare? Or
I would assume they do, right?
Like do full-on assault?
Or would they be too proud and just charge the Empire?
I think they do guerrilla warfare because in the last Clone Wars, in like the finale, that is what they did. Yes, they did both.
They did both.
Full-on
They
assault,
did do full-on assaults.
But then in the sewers, they did more of a guerrilla-style tactic. So I think they.
Well, that was
I don't
under Maul's incursion, because Maul was like, "Hey guys, you can't just like
right
rush them because they will mow you down."
Right. So they obviously.
But in the
adapt.
end, like as
they
Maul's
adapt.
leaving, he's like, "Go for it," because he knows they're all gonna die anyway. So.
But that kind of shows that they're adaptable, so they could do kind of like a guerrilla style. I think they're capable of it.
Sure.
Are they proud enough not to? Yes, but I think
it also
might.
yeah, it also depends on like what sect of the Mandalorians we're
another-
talking about, because I don't think Lady Shax or the Armorer would stand for guerrilla warfare. I think she would want
but they are in hiding.
full
But they're
on,
always in hiding, so why not be in hiding and fight?
because I think they would be too proud. For them, it's you go into combat and you go in for the purpose of you will die a glorious death.
That's a good point. Hiding during combat and hiding just okay.
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah. That's just my thought.
No,
It doesn't really relate to the episode, but I just thought it was an interesting idea.
This is what it looks like. I don't know if you remember seeing it or not.
Oh, that's in Rebels, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's in Rebels.
maybe. I don't want to say anything. Maybe.
That's in
Maybe.
Rebels.
I know for sure
I'm
it's in
like
Clone Wars. If you
100% certain that's in Rebels.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I don't remember that being in Clone Wars, but I remember it being.
I know it was in Clone Wars for sure, but I always imagined they'd use that one. It doesn't matter. It's just like a.
I hate the look of that shit.
I don't mind it. I think it's kind of cool.
I love the Republic.
I prefer
Right.
the paperclip ones.
Yeah.
They kind of look like They kind of look like those paperclip things that you find in school or whatever. It's like the black triangle thing with the two paperclip things on the side.
Yeah, that's the Republic gunship.
Yeah. Rob's looking at me like I'm insane, but
Just say the Republic gun. Like
yeah, but it looks like
the
paper-
orbs at the side that do the laser beam.
They don't always
Yes.
have the orbs.
But when they do, it's pretty.
Right, in the
cool.
Shit's
Clone Wars, they don't
popping.
use the orbs a lot. It's usually without them. In the Clone Wars, it's usually without them.
They showed them in
Well,
Attack of
yeah.
the Clones.
Yeah.
They're
Like-
just nuking the droids and shit. Yeah. Anyways, Luca, did you want to add anything to add in terms of what you liked? What was a highlight for you? Anything like that?
I'm okay. Rob can go.
All right, Rob?
I think those are my two favorite.
Rob, why don't you go for it? Thoughts, opinions, what you liked? Highlight of the episode for you. Let's have it. Let's have at it.
I obviously like Mando coming back. Mando is always a great character. Has always been a great character. But I'm kind of a suck for Mandalorians in general.
True.
So don't take my opinion for it, I guess.
Rob, if I didn't value your opinion, you wouldn't be on the podcast, so just go.
Good point. At first, so Lady Shax decides that spear that he gets in Mandalorian isn't suited for him, right? He should use
It doesn't count.
Yeah, it doesn't count, right? And he should use the Darksaber, which I unfortunately I really like the spear. I think it kind of.
I love how weapons are a part of my religion. Melt your spear down.
Yeah, that's a good meme. Anyways,
Because it's a bad weapon.
Liberty is a part of my
I
religion.
like the spear. I think it was a kind of cool addition.
It's like giving a SWAT officer like a what are those things called? A slingshot.
No.
Yeah, it is. It's
more
the
like giving him a baton, which is totally viable.
A baton is nothing like a spear.
It's like a very
You
short.
could beat someone with a spear.
You can
But
beat
that's not what
somebody
it's
with a baton.
for. That's not what a spear is for.
Yeah, but a spear isn't a slingshot either. I don't think that's a very good comparison either.
They're both projectile weapons.
Spear doesn't have to be.
It's
but so
mostly
is a
used
gun,
for.
But
though.
I wouldn't call a gun and a slingshot the same.
Well, if we're talking spear in like the Roman capacity, that's what it's mostly
Like
used
I guess
for.
if you compared, like if you got like some sort of bow that was best.
But the Mandalore, for me, the Mandalorian spear isn't valued because of the fact it's a spear. It's valued because of the fact that A, it's best guard, 2, it can deflect goddamn lightsaber.
Well,
right, but it could be
and
any
that's-
shape, right?
and
It could be a
that's
True,
what-
shield.
yeah,
But that's
I don't
what
know.
I'm-
I don't have a big issue with it being a spear. I really don't have.
But that's what I'm saying. Like I liked it for its qualities. Like first of all, it was a melee weapon, which in Star Wars is not far-fetched.
No.
It is the only melee weapon besides, of course, a lightsaber that can deflect a lightsaber, and it's kind of badass. Like, when have you last seen a guy with a spear in Star Wars? I'll tell you, never.
I'll tell you, it was the Ewoks. No.
Yeah,
They don't count. They don't exist. Anyway,
small spears.
they're
Very
more
small,
they're
rugged
more-
spears.
They're more like toothpicks. Anyways, so
Toothpicks to you. Some of those spears were as tall as Ewoks.
I'm gonna forget you said that.
Don't worry about it.
Anyways, he freaking. So she melts it down, which I'm not upset about anymore, especially if they made Grogu lightsaber parts.
They didn't.
That's sad. That's unfortunate.
No, it's not. One of the highlights of being a Jedi, and one of the things that they go through
That's why
during
I'm saying
Jedi training.
lightsaber parts. Dan.
No! Let him
Yes.
find his own parts.
No.
It is a rite of passage. Why must you rob us of goodness, Rob?
I don't think Luke. Oh, I guess Luke did get his.
Yeah, all Jedi.
But he didn't get it. A crystal was given to him. Actually, no, he made the crystal too, didn't he?
Luke, depending on which Luke you're talking about. If you're
Depends
talking
on
E-
which canon as well.
Yeah, exactly. Talking about EU Luke, yeah, he uses a synthetic lightsaber crystal.
Yeah. Well, what's in canon?
Kyber crystals. You have to bond with them, so he had to find it somehow. Mm-hmm. He had to find one and bond with it. Because in Legends,
He just
there's
walks
different
up to
kinds of
Ellen and
crystals.
just was like, hey there.
Yeah, in Legends, there's different kind of crystals you can use. But in canon, it's all Kyber crystals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, you were saying, Rob, as he ponders in thought, his arm resting above his raised knee. Go on.
I was going to tell you to go on. So that was neat. I'm kind of sad that he lost the spear. I like the spear, but whatever. So that's a small detail.
Fair enough.
So what happened next? Frickin' he goes to Tatooine,
Yeah. He does go to Tatooine, gets the ship,
gets the ship. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't really care.
takes it for a test flight,
I don't really,
Fett-Chan,
I don't
end of
really
episode.
care that they brought back that starfighter. I don't really
I liked
whatever.
it. You give me prequel things, I make me happy.
like if they brought back like a Jedi starfighter, that would be pretty sick. But
No, I disagree with that.
Look, I like the look of the Jedi starfighter. That's the only reason I'm saying that.
That's
I like
fair.
the look of it. But you know, it was neat.
Highlighted
the one thing
go
that
for it.
the one thing that was always kind of like bringing me out of the episode was, as we keep saying, Boba Fett wasn't in it.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I don't really well, I do understand it, but like I just don't really vibe with it.
Fair enough.
That being said, I freaking love the episode. So it was
Love the episode, but Boba, where the are you?
Yeah, it was very conflicting because I love it and all the content in it was great, but it's not a Boba Fett episode.
Right, I
I'm
agree.
sorry, it's not.
No, I agree. I agree with you.
So
Highlighted the episode for you.
it
The
was all pretty
thing
consistent.
that would make you come back to this episode.
Oh, that fight between him and
Brother
and Jim,
Shax?
and Jim. Yeah,
Jim Vizsla.
that was actually a good fight.
No, it was a good fight. It was a good fight.
All the fights that have happened,
Short, sweet, and to the point.
it was good.
Literally.
It had gravity to it.
Yep.
It felt like a and the main character, not Boba, obviously.
Obviously,
this
because
isn't his show.
no, it's not. Mando. This is now the Mando show.
The main character, yeah, he was getting his ass kicked a little bit.
Yeah.
But he still put up a decent fight, and it
Yeah.
looked convincing. Which
Also-
is the problem I've been having with a lot of Boba Fett's fights, like especially
He doesn't put anything into it.
yeah, and like in the first episode, I'm watching and I'm like, okay, let's wrap this up. In this when they were doing, I'm sorry, it wasn't.
No,
fun to watch.
I understand.
And the fight between the Wookiee was like slightly better, but it just, I don't know, it didn't have the gravity that that fight had. Like that was like, oh my gosh, he might actually lose the saber. Like he won't.
Holy shit! Holy shit!
I'm hoping.
There's a couple of times where Brother Shaq slammed Mando's head into the concrete wall, and I'm like, oh shit.
So can I ask a question about that though? Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah, go for it.
So does the quality of the fight itself, and obviously this can be, the answer to this question can be both, but does the quality of the fight itself come more from the fact that the fight, the choreography, and the way it's done, or does the quality of the fight come from the fact that the stakes are much higher because we're much more invested, right? You mentioned that...
You could say both.
Right, you could say, but which one is more important? Because it seems to me, I could be entirely wrong, but it seems to me that when you say, oh shit, he's going to lose the Darksaber, right? Then maybe that's what the Boba Fett's fights are lacking.
Yeah, they're lacking the gravitas
or the context.
I will say this. I think that the gravitas of the fight, the potential negative outcomes of a fight, to me, are better than the choreography itself.
Or it's more important.
My piece of evidence is, and you will definitely agree with me on this. The reason that I think the Return of the Jedi fight is better...
Greatest movie ever.
...is second greatest. First. Well, maybe third. We'll see.
Look,
I'm putting Revenge of the Sith to Return of the Jedi. They fluctuate, alright?
Yeah, they're both really
So even Luke is like, okay, that's fair.
So good.
The Return of the Jedi fight is better because there's more stakes involved.
Right.
The choreography in Empire is significantly better in the fight than in Return of the Jedi.
I disagree.
Right?
I think they're
I don't know. I think
they clash a couple times.
No, I think they're on
Luke
par.
does
as
a
well.
backflip. He kicks Vader down the
Luke
flight
does a
of
backflip
stairs.
in Return of the Jedi too.
That's what I'm saying. In Return of the Jedi, he
my
backflips,
mistake.
Right?
I think
so. There is no
pretty
backflip in Empire.
No, there is a. Oh,
Not from Luke, I don't think. Is
Well,
it?
just for
he
Vader.
does a front flip.
Does he?
To
to get out of the
jump.
carbon
Yeah.
freezing thing. Yeah.
All too easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the gravitas of a fight means, or the potential for negative outcomes sometimes can matter more. Although, I will always love me a good choreographed fight. My piece of evidence for that is Anakin versus Obi-Wan Revenge of the Sith. That fight was biblical, mate. Was so good. And I have so much respect for Hayden and Ewan, who actually had to sit there and fight at full speed and hope to God they didn't smack each other in the face with a giant stick.
Worth it.
Totally worth it. Honestly, totally worth it.
Oh, it was a great.
If I lost an eye in that fight, totally worth it.
But even in that fight, there is still stakes to be had. It is not a.
It's an end of a trilogy fight.
It is not
it's always
a
going to have
fruitless
stakes.
fight.
No, I know.
But yes, the choreography was better.
It's beautiful.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's flashy.
But I don't think that's fair, though, right? Because, the choreography is better, but you're comparing a film that came out 20 years after the original, right? So, obviously the choreography is going to be better. You know?
But I would say the choreography in Empire is also really good.
I don't think it's anywhere near the prequels.
No,
we're talking objectively speaking, right?
I agree with you. It's not anywhere near.
Well,
but I will say...
look at Duel of the Fates. Right.
Yeah, right.
That's an amazing.
You can't really compare the two. That's the thing.
All I'm saying is that I think the choreography in the Empire fight is better than in Return of the Jedi.
I disagree.
Return of the Jedi matters more than Empire.
I think the choreography. This doesn't really matter. Yeah, I think they're pretty similar.
I think they're very similar. They have the same pace.
If I may, this might get me kicked off the podcast, but I think you may just.
I got a beer bottle in my hand, ready to go.
Yeah, I think you may just enjoy the Empire choreography more because Vader is much more of an active player than a passive player in the fight.
Yep.
Well, yeah, he is the main villain.
I will agree with you. I will agree with you.
I'm just saying.
I've got a Vader crush.
I think before we get Rogue One, or the comics about Vader, or really see his relentlessness.
Yes,
that's a word. His big, powerful strikes. That is the Empire fight is the closest thing we see to Vader as just this looming, towering force of nature as he just boom, boom.
But Vader doesn't really even lose his cool in the fight, though. Is the thing?
No, he doesn't.
Vader. Compare Vader from Rogue One to Vader Vader in Empire Strikes Back. In Empire Strikes Back, he's much more toying with Luke. Is the thing, right?
Sure, but he doesn't want to kill him.
I understand that, but
and then he gets hit in the shoulder, and he's like, "All right, I've done with this kid."
Right, I don't
lose a hand.
I just
but I would
think
say in
they're
Rogue
similar.
One, he doesn't lose his he doesn't lose his shit either. When Vader's making his way down the hallway, he seems incredibly composed.
So we don't really ever see like a Vader who's sort of
Sure, but that's my point. I'm saying up until we see like the comics where we feel every
that's a different medium,
striking.
right?
Well, okay, if you're gonna take issue with every like, well, that's a different medium, and that one doesn't count. It's like, well, just
semantics.
let me just bear with me.
Sorry,
here,
go
okay?
ahead. Sorry.
Just bear with me, okay? For example, in the comic where Vader gets struck down by Luke in the ship, and he ends up on Tatooine, and he's surrounded by like 100 rebels, and he says, all I see is fear and dead men. And then you see, Ron Dagger.
That's like a nicely cooked steak to me.
Well, how'd you like your rebel? Medium, well done, rare.
Medium.
Like, damn, like he really like ends them like in those, right? But you never really get that. But in Empire, like they're like I remember it's the time where it's right before Vader starts chucking the objects at Luke, and Luke fails to baseball bat them.
Right.
Where you see Vader going like just hammering down, and Luke is just like shit, can't keep up.
Silly Luke.
My young boy. But yeah, anyways, getting back to the episode. Rod, do you have any final thoughts, opinions on the episode? I won't say any final thoughts, opinions. Anything you want to add to things you liked or anything like that?
Best fight scene so far. Where the hell's Boba? If I can wrap it up in a little bow for you.
Best fight scene so far. Boba, what the fuck you add? Alright, I guess it's my turn then. So for me, loved the episode, really enjoyed it. Again, I don't really understand why this episode was in Book of Boba Fett. You could have just made this episode 1 of, season 3 of Mandalorian, but, touche, we get it early. Okay, I'll take it. However, I think for me, the highlight of the episode is the describing of the lore of the Darksaber. Even though we've heard the story before,
it's always good to rehash.
It's really good to read, but also remember, you are basically talking to a religious fanatic in Lady Shax, right? She is someone who is live or die by the code, by the creed. This is the way.
Or go to the living mines of Mandalore.
Right, exactly. To atone for yourself. Like, she's basically a religious fanatic. However, the way that she even this is just my opinion, the way she holds the Darksaber with almost a sort of
reverence.
Yeah, like a spit, like I am whole. Like this is like
this is Mandalore.
This is the holy grail of Mandalore, essentially.
It's like the heart.
Yeah, and like this is the thing which makes a leader, basically. And I don't know, it was really nice to see the description of the destruction of Mandalore by the Empire is really nice. It's a good touch. I don't know. I really liked her version of the lore and why the Darksaber is so important.
If I could add to that, really.
Yeah, of course. Please go for it.
More just to Lady Shax, where she's holding it.
Good to see you're picking up on the terminology.
Yeah.
Lady Shax?
Lady Shax. When she's holding the sword and like kind of, as you're saying, revering it, I was kind of getting the impression, like, oh man, is she gonna like try and take it or something?
Well, that's what I thought. I was like, oh shit.
But when she gives it back, and like wholeheartedly, like you feel like she's like, this is yours. And I got
this is your life, Anakin.
Yeah, don't lose it. I actually gained like so much respect for her. Like yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, she's actually like she's so into what she's believing, like she's
a true convert.
Yeah,
she's a true believer.
Like it's not like, oh yeah, this is the way. It's like, no, this is the
way.
The
and
way.
You will respect
the with
it.
the capital T.
Or you will go to
H-E.
the mines of Mandalore.
The living mines.
The living I keep saying the living part. They're not dead.
They're living.
They are living. They are alive with the sound of music.
Is the music the screams
the mines are alive.
The screams of Mandalore's enemies? Music.
Or the Mandalorians being bombed into submission.
It's their ghosts.
Oh.
Their specters.
Yo, can you imagine if you like saw some Mandalorian ghosts or whatever?
Force
That'd
ghosts.
be pretty.
Force Ghosts of Mandalore?
Get out of this house right now.
Living Minds of Mandalore?
We're leaving the
Force
podcast.
Ghosts of
Sorry,
Mandalore?
guys. I need to be subjected to this sort of heresy daily. Or not daily, weekly. But yeah, I really like that part. Probably the highlight of the episode for me. It's always cool to see the... it's always cool to see the Darksaber being swung around and used, but, like, I really appreciate the lore that goes in behind things, because in my opinion, that's where you get a lot of the meaning and the worth behind a lot of these...
Epic stories.
Yeah, exactly, right?
You gotta love
What was I gonna
expanding on universes.
Yeah, there was I can't remember what the video of it was called on YouTube, but it was basically a behind-the-scenes look at the original trilogy with George Lucas. And he was saying, the lightsabers are not supposed to be like these one-handed, flashy type. They are supposed to be like these two-handed weapons. They are supposed to, like, there's some weight behind them. So it was kind of nice to see that get touched upon, or at least kind of going back to George's original vision for how lightsabers should be used. Not that I'm complaining about one-handed, flashy shit. Revenge of the Sith, we're looking at you.
But that makes sense, though, because Anakin and Obi-Wan are masters. So you can make the
argument... Well, Anakin's not a master. He was only given a seat on the council. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
I tell you to take a seat, but you've already found one.
I'm literally already in a seat, and if you can see me, there's no way I'm getting up.
He is glued to that chair.
Well, quite literally, like, my butt actually hurt. Anyways, but yeah, Lucas, sorry, did you want to say something?
No.
It looked like you were like getting ready to jump in there.
Can we discuss what we disliked about it?
Sure, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I wanted to start with the good stuff. And
where was Boba?
Everyone made criticism in the room. Boba, dude. At least show up at the end.
Book of Boba
Book of Mandalorian.
Book of Mandalorian.
But yeah, we can talk what we dislike. Lucas, since you brought it up, you can go first.
Sure. Okay.
Lucas, go ahead and just tear into a good episode. Go for it.
Oh, don't say that. I enjoyed it. I did.
I know. I'm just with you.
I won't reiterate what Rob said about Boba not being in it. Like, I full-heartedly agree. I just won't touch over again because I feel like
you just
sorry. Like, continue. I won't go any more into that. One thing I don't like is I feel like the way that Lady Shax kicked out the Mandalorian was a little bit contrived, and it seemed to me that it sort of only existed for the plot to sort of advance further. The Mandalorian conclave that they have is composed of 3 members, right? Her, Paz, and Mando, right? And this guy's been AWOL for...
Well, now technically it's 2.
Right, now technically it's 2. And this guy's he's been gone for so long, and he comes back, and right away she's asked him, like, oh, have you ever taken your helmet off? It just seemed to me like a very pointed question that wouldn't ever be brought up unless there was reason to doubt he had, right? You know what I mean? Like, I understand if someone had spoken this tale of seeing him unhelmeted or something like that, then it would make more sense to bring it up. But in my opinion, the way it was brought up was sort of like the screenwriters are looking at their watch and they say, okay, we got to get him here, right? How do we do that, right? Oh, exile? Cool, let's do that, right? In my opinion, it just seems sort of contrived and out of place. And I totally understand the argument and what you touched on, Austin, when you said she's very religious, and I understand that, and I do agree it would be in character for her to kick someone out, even as helpful as the Mandalorian is, because he took off his helmet. But to me, it just feels like he's exiled from the group, right? And we understand he doesn't have a ship, whatever. He takes transits to Tatooine, right? But now he's going to be doing stuff on Tatooine when what he could have been doing is regaining that lost honor on Mandalore, right? So we set up a plot thread, right? And we talk a lot about how this episode could have been in The Mandalorian, and it should have been in The Mandalorian, right? And if it was at the beginning, which I assume is what they would do, it would set up that plot thread of him regaining his honor, and then we could follow him through on Mandalore and whatever, continue on with that, right? Now he's exiled, and the first thing he thinks of is, okay, I'm gonna go to Tatooine and get a new ship, right? You know what I mean? Oh, and then Boba needs my help. I'm gonna go help Boba.
Right.
So to me, it just feels like. It feels like when you have a main quest in a video game and then you find this side quest that's more interesting for you and that has better rewards and you just do that instead.
Right.
Sort of like in Skyrim where Alduin is going to eat the world. I don't know. I apologize.
But then you go join like the Dark Brother.
Exactly. Exactly.
Like,
right?
I could do that later.
Yeah, you can stop the
I'll
world.
do that, it's fine.
You can stop the world-eating dragon later. You gotta do these other quests first, right? It just gave me that sort of feeling. And in a video game, it's okay because the suspension of disbelief is handled on the player. You can do whatever you want, right? The player creates their own agency.
Hence, I
Or you just mod it to where you don't have to even start that quest.
Exactly, right? You know, but obviously in a television show, it's different. These are linear events with no control from us, right?
Right.
So I'm going really long about this, and I apologize.
No, it's all right.
But I just felt like it was too much too soon, and they should have done that after they had wrapped up everything with Mando and Boba. You know, I have no problem with Boba requesting help from Mando, but send him on his quest for redemption after that, right? Because now you've just got too many cooks in the kitchen, except cooks you have different...
main characters.
No, not main characters, but you have too many plot threads that are
intertwining?
Yeah, in my opinion, at least. That's
okay, so I don't necessarily disagree with the...
But you don't necessarily agree.
Critique of
I don't necessarily agree either.
That's
I don't
fine.
necessarily agree with the critique of the whole. I don't necessarily disagree with the critique about the whole. Like, it feels like some things are just trying to move the plot forward. I agree with you, and I think that there are times where that action is kind of justified versus other times where. So, for example, I would say that the vision that Luke gets on Empire is a way for him to get his ass off of Dagobah to go help his friends in Cloud City.
It's a plot device.
Well, I wouldn't call it a plot because it's important to the plot, but I wouldn't call it a plot device. Anyways,
Wow.
However, my main
Device for the plot.
My main disagreement with your comment, if I may, is
Absolutely.
the comment about how it kind of feels weird for her to just kind of excise him from like the Mandalorian order.
Well,
Actually, no.
Can I say can I just say one thing?
Go for it. Go ahead.
I believe exactly what I said was I understand she would exile him from the order. I just think it's weird she brought it up specifically in that moment.
Actually, and I actually have something about that.
Sure.
So when we first hear her say that is actually when Jim is about to start a fight with Mando in the first season, and he Lady Shax asks, "Have you ever taken off your helmet?" to both of them. I think it's kind of like not only a callback to that, but kind of like sort of like a mother trying to break up her two cubs from fighting sort of thing. I think it's more of like trying to bring them together sort of thing. But obviously in that case in the first season it worked, but in this it backfired because he had done it.
Right.
So like they started the fight in the first season, and obviously she was able to break it up. But in this, not only was it a fair challenge, and so allowed.
Ordained is like being blessed upon.
Yeah,
right?
sorry, allowed.
Could
by,
work.
Given what we're talking about, yeah.
Allowed by Lady Shax to continue.
Right.
But at the end, when she's like, "This, it's over. That's it," and then kind of tries to bring them together, I think it does work.
I think, and this is just my take, I think we're... now I'm going to say some shit that's going to come off as controversial. I don't give a shit. I think it's a pretty apt comparison. I think that Lady Shax views the removal of the helmet the same way that jihadist extremists in the Middle East view women removing the hijab or the burqa or the niqab. And it is a deeply, deeply sinful action which either deserves exile or, in some parts of the Middle East, death.
Is this getting into a political rant?
No, it's not going to get into a political rant, I promise. I think
politics
the way
in the breeze?
we'll get to that in the second half. I promise. The second half of the podcast. because I have some words to say about a few things.
Okay.
You can blame Luca for the rant that's coming.
Oh no!
Please do.
But I think the way I see the whole did you remove your helmet? It is very much a intro and exit to any trial by combat that the Mandalorians have. It's kind of like in the medieval times, where knights before they would go out to fight, or knights before they would have a duel to the death, would be blessed by the priest or the king would give his like spiel, like, oh, may you both fight,
Honorably.
Kind of thing, right? That to me is what I'm kind of seeing. But I think that we underestimate how devoted, and I think, and this is just my personal opinion, and maybe I'm acting too cynical here. I think if it meant keeping the Mandalorian code pure and alive, I think she would have watched Vizsla die without even blinking.
What do you mean? Like
I think that if
she would have let
as Mando had this vibroblade to his throat, if it was break the Mandalorian code and reduce and keep your numbers to 3 instead of 2, or let him die and keep the code intact, I think she would have let him die without a second's.
Does the code require death in a fight?
I don't know. We don't really have... And again, we also have to remember there's different sects of Mandalorians. So you have your Bo-Katan type Mandalorian who takes her helmet off all the time. And in fact, we get a conversation between Bo-Katan and Mandalorian in Season 2 of The Mandalorian where you're like, whoa, you're part of like some basically extremist sect.
Right.
Let's not blow things out of proportion. But like I don't think it does. However, depending on your interpretation of trial by combat in Mandalorian culture, I could see it kind of being like you duel to the death, or like you're both executed.
But yes, okay, fair. So Mandalorian, when he fights Moff Gideon, he does not kill Moff Gideon. He explains that to her, and she seems all right with it.
Right.
So I don't think, in her eyes, as long as you've defeated your opponent, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Not only that, but I don't think Mando was going to kill Jimmy anyways.
Right. Fair enough. Well, I don't think Mando would, because Mando's very much, you submit, like, we let you off.
Right.
I don't know. There's something that, like, I think if push came to shove, I think she'd let another Mandalorian die if it as long as the code was kept intact.
I don't think at the end of that fight she was like, okay, calm down, kids. Like, I think she was just like, all right.
Well, she literally just stood there and she was like, okay, so have you taken it off? Like, very,
exactly. She wasn't exactly like, oh gosh, we can't have this guy dying, right?
Yeah, she was fully prepared to be like, okay, totally. I guess she's gonna have to go.
So she kind of goes under that what you just said. She's like, yeah, I would have.
I would have let him go if the code needs to be upheld. Really quickly, first time chatter. The Eagle's Path says where the action. The action is on screen and what you are listening to, my good sir. Welcome to the podcast,
sick,
sir,
and original.
But yeah. Feel free to follow if you enjoy the podcast so far. We do this weekly.
Like we could put on Doom if you really want.
Yeah, Rob, we'll put on and just let Rob just play the game. God, Rob commentary on Doom would be great for streaming content.
It would be wholesome.
Yeah. But yeah, Luca, did you want to add anything in terms of things that you didn't like or things like that?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean,
Luca? Yeah, I think I will actually.
I agree with what you said, but I don't have a problem with her exiling him. I just thought that they shouldn't have done it now if they were going to do it.
Fair enough.
That's my thing, right? Yeah. I don't see why it happened now.
And right? I can understand that.
And sure, I agree with what Rob said. I didn't even notice that, so it's very it's very cool that you brought it up, where it's a callback to the first season as sort of a way to break up the fight. And that's really cool. So, to me, they could have just made Paz Vizsla challenge Mando later on, right?
Sure.
Because he didn't have to do it now. At least I don't think he did, right?
But I think, and again, I could be grasping at straw because we have no idea what Season 3 Mandalorian is going to have for us. It could be very much we're going to see another trial by combat for the rightful rule of Mandalore, and they don't want to have multiple trials by combat to make it redundant.
I don't know, but just like think about it like this, right? You're explaining what happens in Mandalorian season 3, which we know hasn't come out yet, but that's fine. You're explaining what happens in it to someone else who hasn't seen it, right?
Right.
And they're okay with spoilers, they're okay with everything. You explain the entirety of the show. And while explaining it, you have to tell them that what I personally believe will be a main plot point, the fact that he's exiled, you have to tell that person that main plot point occurred in a show that isn't The Mandalorian.
Fair
Do you know what I mean? That's
I understand.
That's what rubs me the wrong way, right?
Yep.
You have such a Mando-focused episode in Book of Boba Fett where something that's very critical happens to him. Why not just save that for later? You know, it's a very good... you know, if you look at the classic, like the storytelling, whatever it's called, like the roller coaster era, right? That's a very good inciting incident, right? To make the Mandalorian go to Mandalore and then do other stuff, right? So why have it in Book of Boba Fett, right? It's just that segmenting it that I don't really understand.
I agree that it should have been left for the Mandalorian season 3.
And I understand that the whole trial by combat thing, but I personally think they could spin that and make it work, even if it happens multiple times in a show, because I think they could make it sort of this thing where as long as the combatants themselves are different enough, it would be something that we as viewers would be okay with, right? Because I don't think anyone's going to disagree with more action scenes, right?
No one's good.
As long as they're good.
Put the dark saber away. No one wants to see that.
Right. So if you only
heretic,
if you only see one person
every Mandalorian
challenge,
just like turns around.
No, it's okay. But if you only see one person challenge him throughout the whole thing, then you maybe wonder, like, is this such a coveted thing, right? But if you see multiple different people, maybe Bo-Katan challenges him, and then we have Mr. Jimmy here who challenges him.
And Mando has to like keep one eye open at all times.
Exactly, right? You never know who it's going to be, right? Yeah, sort of thing.
Right.
What else? We already talked about the droid thing, I guess, so I won't bring that up. I mean, the Naboo Starfighter is cool, but I always felt like he would want a bigger ship, you know what I mean?
Right.
To, like,
it would make more sense for bounty hunting. Like, consider Boba Fett's
fire spray gunship.
No, you know what, screw it. Slave 1.
There you go. We don't care on this podcast. We don't give a shit.
I don't care. I'm calling it what it's supposed to be called. Considering Boba's Slave 1, it has plenty of room to imprison perhaps a certain character that we all know and love called Mr. Solo in Carbonite. Just like any Boba Fett ship, bounty hunter ship is supposed to do. So the Starfighter is kind of like a strange thing to have.
Yeah,
it's a one thing. Like, how are you going to collect bounties like that?
Yeah, not to mention in the Star Wars universe, Starfighters are very sort of short-range vehicles.
Unless, of course, they're like Jedi Starfighters, in which case
which are meant for more diplomatic missions, right? But even with the Jedi Starfighter, it's usually a point A to point B thing, and then return back to the temple, right? So in my opinion, something like the Slave One or the Razor Crest being a larger ship would make more sense. It's sort of similar if you compare like maybe like a mid-sized sedan to like a Dodge Grand Caravan, right? One of them I think would be a lot more suited to, let's say, cross-country traveling, right? And maybe a life that doesn't have a permanent location, right? Like if you're traveling across the country and you don't have a permanent residence, I think you'd want to reside in a larger, even like a camper van, right? Something with a lot of room, which is what the Slave One or the Razor Crest is, right? This is like Mandalorian's going across the galaxy, but he's living in the back of his Honda Civic, right? It's not the most spacious thing. You can do it.
That's the thing. But I think what we're gonna see is an upgrade. This is what he has for now.
Okay.
Until he gets something later. I don't think this is gonna be like his permanent mode of transportation. Like, this is akin to him like using public transport.
You know, it'd be really cool if he got like a bigger ship that could house a Starfighter.
With like a hangar, that'd be pretty cool.
Like,
imagine if like
I'm not talking like a frickin'
hold on. Like, imagine if in season 3 Mandalorians rose up and like launch an attack to like free Mandalore, and one of the prizes they get is like a galactic star cruiser or whatever it is, or like an old star destroyer, and the King of Mandalore gets that as his like modus operandi, and like could you it's fine, it's just my phone, it's just gonna fall.
The Mandalorian.
Yeah,
driving a freaking cruiser.
Rob, I know you mentioned you played the Old Republic, right? In the Old Republic, they have guilds like any MMO does. But what guilds can do is buy a guild ship, which is theirs, and they can decorate it and name it and whatever.
Which I don't think I've ever been on mine, but whatever.
That's fine. But
I'm too busy doing quest stories. And
so I think they could do something like that, and maybe even before they attack Mandalore, maybe the guild ship or whatever they call it could serve as sort of their base of operations, if you will, right? So they can kind of plan out and strategize.
That's when Rob is like, I'm not saying it's Star Cruiser me, but I am.
Right. But that's all I have to say.
You imagine if like the Mandalore, like the Mandalore as they call him, like the King of Mandalore, or whatever.
Well, usually it's Mandalore the something. At least that's how it is in Legends.
Yeah.
So
or sometimes they refer to it as the Mandalore. Like I know in the Revan Legends book, they refer to the King of Mandalore as the Mandalore.
Sure, but that's from like a first-person point of view, in that there's always only one Mandalore current, right? And he had the name Mandalore the something. I don't remember.
I think it was Mandalore the Wise. I think.
I don't think so. Maybe.
I'm gonna Google that.
I know Mandalore. There's Mandalore the Preserver, Mandalore the Indomitable. I think.
Yo, that's a name.
I think that was one of them.
Mandalore the Ultimate. Mandalore the Great, Mandalore the Preserver, Mandalore the Indomitable, Mandalore the Vindicated, Mandalore the Avenger, Mandalore the First, Mandalore the Destroyer, Mandalore the Redeemer, Mandalore the Lesser.
Right, I think Mandalore the Preserver might have been the one. I don't remember.
Poor Mandalore.
The Lesser.
The Lesser. Oh.
Yeah, Mandalore the Ultimate, I'm pretty sure, is from the Knights of the Republic. Yeah. He's the guy during the Mandalorian Wars.
The one that Revan's like, this guy is a madman and needs to be stopped.
Yeah.
I just defeated Revan last night.
Get out.
So...
They butcher his story in the Old Republic. It's really dumb. I know they bring him back. He's not defeated for good. There's a whole DLC about it.
Spoilers!
He was way too easy to kill in that.
There's a DLC called Shadow of Revan. I don't know what you expect.
Wait till you get to some of the boss fights in Doom. That was far too easy. Gets resurrected 2.0 seconds. I mean, yeah.
Well, why don't you give me the controller and I can see for myself?
That's why you come over early. But yeah. I guess I'll pass it over to Rob. Rob, what are things that you disliked about the episode?
Didn't you just pass it over to me?
I was trying to, and then you guys were talking about Mandalore the whatever.
No,
I was attempting to.
No. You two were talking about Mandalore.
Look, we can go back and check the video. The record will absolve me.
Okay.
For I am Mandalore the Absolved.
That's a cool one.
That is a good
I
one.
agree.
Mando should be called Mandalore the Small Green Child Lover.
That sounds like he's a pedophile, and it sounds like he's a child molester.
Horrible.
Although, here's a question.
I prefer to be Mandalore the Lesser.
Hold on, I may get my channel canned for this, but I'm going to say anyway, because I think it's hilarious. Well, maybe not hilarious. Maybe that's the wrong word to use.
Hilarious?
If the Mandalorian did, let's just say he did some things to Grogu.
Oh my god.
I wasn't implying that. You're taking it way
already lost.
You lost me and did.
Let's say hypothetically he did. Right?
I don't
would
want to
it
get into
really
this.
be considered child molestation?
Yes, it would.
Like
yes, it would, because
50 years old.
No, because maturation is dependent on the species, not on
For the record, I'm not endorsing anything. I'm just saying hypothetically, because Yoda's species is like 900 years old. All right, it's all I'm trying. Technically, Grogu is as old as Vader at his death, so I'm just gonna. Moving on, Rob. What did you not like about the episode?
Wow.
Look, I'm trying
You just end it now.
I'm trying to get into child care.
You ruined it.
This is... I'm never getting in now.
I don't even know where to go from that.
Oh, Lord.
What were we talking about again?
I was going to ask you what you disliked about the episode.
Right.
If there is anything that you disliked that already hasn't been covered.
Well, that's the thing. It's pretty much been covered. Like... the whole Boba thing, like, I guess I'll elaborate a little bit more. Like, I'm fine with Mando having his own episode in Boba Fett. That's fine.
But at least show me Boba.
No. If Boba Fett was more than 7 episodes. I don't think you have the time to do that stuff.
True.
That's my whole gripe. Like, you can do it, and that's fine, but you have to have more episodes to compensate for it.
Right.
I understand with you two saying it's like you should have just kept that all in Mandalorian season 3. I kind of agree, but I kind of liked it being in there. I think it's a good. I think if it was maybe executed a little better, it could have been done. I think it was done really well. Again, it's literally for me. It's literally just the runtime of the season.
Right. I am going to dip for just a moment. You two keep talking, and then if we're done, if you guys want to give your final thoughts while I'm gone, I'm just going to go grab something. If you guys want to go give your final thoughts on the episode, and then if you'd like, we can move on to the second part of our conversation that I had planned for tonight.
Oh, gosh.
Sure.
And on that note, you guys talk. I'll be right back.
Is it going to get really political down
I
there?
have no idea what Austin's planning.
No,
so
but I have a great plan.
I don't know.
You planned it. Did you write it down?
I planned it. I was looking up things this afternoon, planning, getting my
gosh.
arguments straight, all right?
Oh, my.
All right.
Am I going to be, fed some news that I didn't know about?
I don't think it's going to be
now?
political so much as philosophical.
Exactly. And it will connect to Star Wars, I swear to God.
Mm-hmm.
So you two give your final thoughts on the episodes. I will be right back.
Okay, I guess I'll go first. Final thoughts. I really enjoyed this episode. It just shouldn't have been in this series. Shouldn't have been in the one called The Mandalorian.
I enjoyed it.
Because we need more Boba Fett.
That's true. And that's my whole thing. I enjoyed it too. And I think it would have been fine in this series if Boba Fett had more episodes. Mm-hmm. That's just my whole thing.
Right.
I know this is a bit of a far-fetched example, but The Last Airbender, if you've ever watched that, there's episodes with just Zuko in it.
Right. Well, that has 3 books, right?
But that's why I said why I prefaced it was it's far-fetched, but
right.
I'm kind of trying to get the point across.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's perfectly valid. Obviously The Last Airbender is about Aang, but you can have other character-focused episodes, right?
Exactly.
It helps flesh them out, right?
And I understand what you were getting at with it's weird to have kind of those one-off episodes in Book of Boba Fett, for example, because that's what we're talking about, and not having it in Mandalorian season 3 because people watch that and not be caught up on a plot point.
Right. Yeah, just not have don't have important episodes.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, I understand it, but I kind of disagree because what they're going for is kind of a Marvel Cinematic Universe sort of deal in episodic form, it's TV, but it's not movies. Anyways, so I think it can work because ideally you're supposed to watch everything. Whereas you wouldn't go through the Marvel Cinematic Universe without watching, a couple movies, you could, especially if you've already watched them, but if it's your first time, for example, you would want to watch all of it,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that kind of applies for the episodes too. You'd watch Boba and you'd be caught up on all the things that have been happening.
Yeah, I agree. I think I just have, I guess, an aversion to that sort of style of storytelling then, right? And yeah, it's obviously with the MCU based on comic books. It is a very comic book thing where they're kind of oh, what happens in this? How did this character get here? Okay, well, read their standalone comic series to find out, right?
Yeah, so it's like the Hulk in Thor Ragnarok.
Well,
how did he get back to Earth?
Yeah.
Well, you should have watched Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, I personally don't like that because I feel like Star Wars has always had self-contained stories or trilogies, and the OT does somewhat depend on the prequel trilogy, right? But I don't think enough to the point where you...
I think it could be a standalone.
I agree. It was a standalone, right?
30 years.
Yeah, Obi-Wan tells you everything you need to know in A New Hope, and then you kind of go from there, right? So the prequels enhance, to some people, To others,
to
others it detracts, right? But the
those people are insane. We shouldn't be talking about that.
Right. So the prequels serve as sort of in addition to the OT, but they're also their own thing. So the prequels are standalone, the OT is standalone. Even a film like Rogue One, which I think if there's ever a movie that you could argue from the MCU's perspective of needing to have watched other stuff, it is Rogue One. I think because it's sort of like
it relies on everything, really.
Yeah. So I understand it with that, but even still, I feel like Star Wars has usually had a good thing of having like standalone stuff, and when they do sort of intertwine, like canon stuff, it's always like small mentions, right? Like if you read a book like Darth Plagueis, right? It's chock. I know Austin has read it. It's chock full of.
I have yet to give you that back. I'm sorry.
Of like small.
It's all good. Not a big deal.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like small references and like mentions of like other parts that are going on at the same time, but you don't need to have read those to understand the story itself, right? Mm-hmm. You don't need to have read the Darth Bane trilogy to understand Plagueis because it is surmised in Plagueis, right? That's what I think a good story should be, self-contained, right? Yeah. So I personally just don't like the MCU approach, right? Because Austin, you mentioned.
Are we complaining about the MCU now?
No. It's just
it was the matter of bringing characters in and having important plot threads.
Yeah.
In a contained story. For example, I gave the example of Hulk in Thor Ragnarok. It's like, well, how did he get back to Earth? Like, you should have watched Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Right.
So. Austin, you mentioned one show, it was called like Hit Monkey or whatever, the new one, and you said, I'm not going to watch that, right? No. So what if one person saw Book of Boba Fett and they say, I don't care about Boba Fett, I don't want to watch that, right?
Yep.
But they want to watch Mandalorian, and they pull stuff like that, in my opinion, just sort of detracts from the viewing experience, right?
Sure.
That's a good point.
Or if they have like, at the very least, they should do previously on Book of Boba Fett and give like
which they might do.
They might.
But I don't know.
They might.
If they do that, then I'm fine with it. But so I see your point.
Right.
And it may lead people to want to, of their own volition, go and watch that episode.
Yeah, so now we're sacrificing the quality of a story just to get people to watch other stuff.
I don't think
That's a good point.
But I don't think
I
you
love that,
sacrifice. But I don't think you sacrifice the quality of any story. You can still appreciate a story and enjoy your story and keep up with the story, understand what's going on through previews and through going back and I guess it would be a
rewatching it?
Not a rewatch. What they do before every episode.
Previously, a recap?
Right, a recap.
Preview.
Right? You can do that, and as long as they keep the main points of that episode in the recap, you don't have to go back and watch it. But if you want to, I don't think them wanting to go back and watch that episode is affecting the quality of the storytelling moving forward.
No, but
especially
when
you're
you watch
trying to interweave all these stories together.
Yeah, but to me it's just messy, right? Because when you watch a show, you watch it linearly, right? Assuming you're interested in the show, right? So therefore, the recaps are not so much as to tell you important plot points, though, to remind you of important plot points, right? And to me, there's a big difference because the context of how it happens matters. Or else, who wants to watch a 50-minute episode when I can read a 150-paragraph Spark Notes about it, right? Because the context of the show is what matters, right? So, yeah, they can tell it in a recap, but it won't be the same as having seen the show.
Sure.
That's what I think, right? Like, I don't know. I totally understand. It's a personal, opinionated thing.
I totally get where you're coming from. I take issue with the idea that it somehow sacrifices the quality of the storytelling.
I
disagree with that because I don't think that there's any. I don't know how you would measure like what the detriment would be. Like, how would you measure?
That's why it's a subjective thing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So as long as saying like, it's a subjective thing, then like I would, I guess, kind of agree from your perspective.
This entire podcast is subjective.
No, I know.
We can
talk. No, everything we say is objective.
We can talk about.
If you don't do the things that we like, you're a heretic and an apostate. And you should be banned.
Yeah, it's like.
I'm kidding. Please stay. Please follow. Like, subscribe. Do the thing. Okay. Oh God.
Get banished.
Rob is just like the boot of like the Spartan as he like kicks you down the well.
This is Sparta.
This is Mandalore.
This is the way.
This is the way. But yeah, Jesus, as Rob like punched the air with his foot. Did you guys want to add anything more about the episode? Or?
No, I think I really want to hear what you're going to be ranting about.
Okay, so
I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it.
Heads up to every single person who's watching this right now. Things are about to get real philosophical, and if it's not your cup of tea, I totally understand. You guys can head out and come back next week, but. There's something that was sent to me by one of the individuals in this room.
Was it that thing from last week?
No, something that he sent me today. Sent me today, and I had to go over it because I think it's interesting. It does connect to Star Wars, but this gonna get philosophical real quick. Okay, the connection to Star Wars will come in the second half of my rant.
I'm so excited.
So.
You should have got popcorn.
There was a post. It wasn't my fault.
It wasn't. I tried my best. I'm sorry.
Then you bring it, Rob.
I'm joking. Gosh.
We had some, then we ate it. But yeah, so this is something that Lucas sent me. It was a Reddit post that was put up, and the title of the post is called "The Sith Philosophy is Basically Objectivism." Okay. Now, I'm going to read the post.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
Now, I'm going to read this post as a whole, and then I'm going to give my particular thoughts on it. Unless you had an objection, Luca.
I don't know. Is it... Can you read posts in full? I guess you can, right?
I think as long as I don't mention the author.
You already cited it. Well, okay.
Right. I don't know.
Wait,
it's your
are
channel.
you not supposed to mention?
I have no idea.
I think we're good.
Are you not supposed to cite your whatever?
No. It's whether or not I can read the article in full. I think I can.
It's not an article.
Because it's not even an article. It's a post. It's like reading a Facebook post. Am I going to get it? No, I think we're good.
I don't know what the Pharisees
I've seen people on like Twitch pull up people's Twitter posts, so I feel like I'm good.
Right.
Please God, no one report me. I haven't done anything wrong. I've been a good boy.
So speaking about those German trains.
Knock it off! Anyway, the title of this post is called "The Sith Philosophy is Basically Objectivism." So I keep wanting to call it an article. The post starts with, "For anyone unaware, objectivism is a philosophy created by Russian-American writer Ayn Rand. Many millennials and Gen Zers, including myself, were introduced to objectivism through BioShock, wherein it is the guiding philosophy of a character named Rapture."
Actually, Rapture's the city.
Sorry. Objectivism has roughly two core tenets. The first argues that human progress is brought upon by intellectually and physically gifted / superior individuals, and the second argues that both morality and ethics are social constructs created by inferior individuals or, quote, parasites to limit the capabilities of the superior individuals.
Sounds like a certain German buddy I know.
Ayn Rand was strongly against the concept of governments or laws, as she considered both to be restrictive towards potential of the aforementioned superior individuals by forcing them to support inferior populations. To me, this is all very similar to the Sith philosophy. The Sith believe that their force sensitivity makes them innately superior to every non-force sensitive life form, and it seems very clear to me that the Sith lack any concept of morality or ethics. We rarely see instances of a Sith attempting to justify their actions because, like objectivists, they reject the concept that their actions need to be based on morality or ethics to transpire. Rather, they have an extremely individualistic outlook on the world around them. In essence, they feel entitled to do what they do because they can. The reason why the Sith keep metaphorically cannibalizing one another is the same reason why objectivism itself fails. The existence of an order requires cooperation, and it's simply not possible for hyper-individualists to work together or swear loyalty to each other. For this reason, Darth Bane's rule of two was actually a pretty smart decision, although it still eventually ended in failure because the Sith philosophy is still objectivist. So, there are a few things I want to talk about with this particular Reddit post. So I think, in my opinion, the author is pretty confused on what objectivism is. I've brushed up on my Ayn Rand. For those of you who don't know who Ayn Rand is, as the article suggests, she was a philosopher. However, she was one of the many thinkers which brought us an era of human history called the Enlightenment. These are your Ayn Rands, your John Locke's, your Adam Smith's, your essentially the evolution of what would be considered later on as classical liberalism, or even as far as to say things like libertarians. Ayn Rand's philosophy in terms of believing in a superior being or superior individuals is... Can we relax, phone? is, in my opinion, uncharitable to be nice about it, almost malicious to be extreme. Ayn Rand's philosophy is that individuals who value reason and who value logic and use these kinds of things and believe that people were not simply members of groups, but that they were individuals in their own right with their own agency and decision-making and choice, were superior to, now when I say superior, I don't mean in like the Third Reich kind of way superior.
Are you certain?
But yes, I spent today watching a 6-hour listening to a 6-hour audiobook on Ayn Rand because I wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about on this.
Good for you.
Because you don't open your mouth to talk about something unless you know what the hell you're talking about. The idea that somehow Ayn Rand was some supporter of, a supreme group of people over another in the way that it kind of, Rob, calm down, is just, to me, I'm not quite understanding where this comes from. Now, in terms of addressing the Sith, before I get into the Sith part, objectivism as a philosophy simply states that there are things in this world which must be objective. So, for example, it would be looking at a chair and saying, there is a chair there. That's not what we call that chair might be up for some interpretation, but the fact that this thing exists is in itself, and this is from Ayn Rand's particular philosophical outlook, goes, okay, there is a chair, what we call it is subjective, but the fact that something exists is objectively true. Or, for example, there's the line, I'm not sure if many of you have heard, I think, therefore I am, which would be a version of objectivism. That the fact that we are able to have consciousness or are able to use reason is evidence of our existence. It is an objective existence. We have this, I think, therefore I am. Now, in connection to the Sith philosophy, in terms of the Sith acting out in a way without a particular set of principles or code or ethics, I don't know if this person hasn't heard of the Sith code or hasn't read it or hasn't come into contact with it, because the Sith very clearly have reasons for doing what they do. And it's not that the Sith try to justify their actions or say, we do these things that are good because of X. They know what they're doing is wrong. They just don't care, because the Sith outlook or the Sith philosophy is one of, I do these things so that I gain power, and through power I gain victory. Through victory my chains are broken, the Force shall free me. It was a really weird thing to read, and I wanted to talk about it because there seems to be a growing trend where people get a snippet of information and then they run with it without digging into the thing that they're actually writing about. Now, maybe I'm being uncharitable to the person who reads it. I don't know them. I don't know their, background when it comes to Star Wars, the background when it comes to philosophy, but it seems like a very strange take. I mean, Ayn Rand was very much someone who was I guess you would call it a classical liberal, though I don't agree with everything that she wrote. She talked about things like how altruism is always bad, and that the human beings' sole driving factor is selfishness, and selfishness is good because self-preservation is in itself a form of selfishness. I don't necessarily agree with that take, but that's a whole separate thing. But the idea that somehow objectivism correlates with the Sith, when the Sith don't care about objective reality, they only care about subjective reality. My evidence for this is, you take Palpatine, alright? You take Plagueis and, Sith before him. They see a world that, in their opinion, is being destroyed by the weak and is being somehow corrupted, and they feel a need to correct this by subjugating people, and that the strong should rule over the weak. Now, Ayn Rand in some interpretations of her work, people have made the argument that she too believes in a superior beings ruling over others, but when you actually look at her work, she's mostly talking about people with the ability to reason and logic generally have better lives or are generally able to exist in a world better than those without the tools to reason or logic their way through the world and through their own decision making. And through that ability to reason and logic and to have agency and choice and free will, that makes those values, those things that you believe in, would make someone not necessarily superior in the, like I said earlier, the Third Reich sense, but superior in that this is probably someone who is better easily dealt with in a society. The same way that we would view that someone who says it's okay to rape people is probably not someone who would be at least morally superior to someone who goes, it's not okay to rape. Obviously, we have certain moral stances on things, and there are some things that we do agree, whether subjectively or objectively, agree are bad or are good, and we generally place hierarchical views on things like morality. Anyway, that's the end of my rant. I apologize if that was long or, whatever. I just wanted to get that off my chest. It was an interesting read. Luca, thank you for sending me that. Otherwise, this whole thing wouldn't have happened. I wanted to and I know that we've already discussed this on the podcast. In fact, it's one of our most highly viewed videos on YouTube, talking about the Jedi and the Sith Code. But I wanted to kind of get your guys' takes on whether or not you guys think that the Sith give a crap about an objective world, or whether you think that they're more subjective, or if you think they're more individualist or collectivist in terms of their philosophical outlooks on the world. We're getting into some heavy shit, so you've been warned. And we can get some healthy discussion up in this.
So, for my limited knowledge, because I am admittedly not as knowledgeable about Star Wars as you two. I have never read the comics and all that stuff. I'm only just getting into SWTOR, but that's Legends, so I guess, does that even count anymore?
It counts. We
love Legends here?
Depends
we
who you
love
ask.
Legends. We love... If you ask Disney, they hate Legends.
Well, screw them.
Agreed.
But from what I remember from the deep chasms of my mind is that...
Let's not use word like deep to read. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
The dark depths is that Palpatine actually did lose sight of objective reality. He was trying to explore into the deeper depths of the universe, trying to find as far as I understood it, he was trying to find a higher connection to the Force through the dark side, but a higher connection to the Force nonetheless. I wouldn't say they're I wouldn't say they're collectivist, because they don't have a very collective kind of nature. They're not the group sort of thing. They're like the Jedi are.
Right.
The Jedi are strength in numbers kind of deal. Not communist strength in numbers, but
I know what you meant. Don't worry. You're good.
But I think they are more individualist to a certain degree. For example, they still, even though they're individualist, they still take on apprentices. I think deep down they know their days are numbered, and they want to pass off their knowledge. And the apprentice killing them is almost a way, not only a rite of passage for the apprentice to become a Sith Lord, but it's almost like a you take my it's like a torch, like you pass on the torch kind of thing. So I think it's a way of being eternal through the apprentice.
Right.
So I don't think they're very objective, and kind of listening to you rant about that kind of made me see. For the record, I'm not like a philosophy PhD or anything. I'm not saying you are.
I enjoy getting into philosophy because I think it's interesting.
Admittedly, when you were reading that, I wasn't really catching what you had a problem with until you voiced your problems, and I was like, that makes sense. Yeah, I think they're individualists, and I don't think they have. I think maybe to start they might have for example, Palpatine again, great character. You can really pull you can really pull a lot of examples out of him. Seeking power at first means conquering the known galaxy, right, which he does. And what does he do after that? Then he goes after the ethereal.
Right.
So I think it's more of a progression system. I think at first they start with power of the material, mm-hmm, and then they kind of exceed that.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's my take. Whereas the Jedi are always trained from the beginning, from the get-go, to let go of the material.
Right.
Anyways.
They're all about the ethereal.
Yeah, they are all about the ethereum. Whereas, and I imagine the Sith could be as well. Like they could start from the get-go. Like
sure.
Anyways, that's my take.
Luca, thoughts, opinions, takes?
Yeah.
The hotter the better, the spicier the better. You know how we do things here on the 501st podcast?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's a lot to unpack. Do you want me to discuss specifically about the Sith, or we can talk about the misinterpretation of philosophical...
How about this? How about we start with what you believe, or I don't want to straw man because I haven't heard your opinions, mm-hmm, but why don't we start with potential misinterpretations of the philosophical outlook, and then we can connect that to the Sith afterwards.
Right, yeah, sure. So, I think one thing that you talked about was where people sort of read maybe a little bit about something and then sort of run with it. And yeah, I think that, and again, I don't want to say that I'm any better than anyone else when it comes to this, but I think it's a tendency that we all sort of have to, especially in this digital age, to sort of maybe read a summary of something and then feel like we've understood the key points when, mm-hmm, maybe we haven't completely done so. Mm-hmm. As I mentioned before, context is important for a lot of stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And it's understandable because we don't have a lot of time to spend to read these philosophical texts, which are obviously very, usually they're very large. And you mentioned Descartes with I think, therefore I am. Descartes uses a lot of examples, and a lot of other philosophers do too. And if you don't understand what he's trying to put with the example or trying to prove, then it gets a little bit confusing. So it's definitely not easy to do that. So I will agree that there is a tendency to sort of take something and run with it. I don't think it's maybe malicious to say. It's just, it's hard to sort of understand what someone is trying to posit as their idea, mm-hmm, especially so when that someone isn't among us anymore. You know, all we can extract from their ideas are that which they have written down, which may not be complete, or which may be written in a way that doesn't connect with us like it connects with other people, right? I was on my phone as you were doing your rant. I'm not the most familiar with Nietzsche, but I have some familiarity with me. And
interesting gentleman.
Yeah, so when you talk about the sort of how you said that from this post, their view of objectivism was sort of misinterpreted from the way you described objectivism, and I'm not saying you're wrong at all. It's very much in the sense of the super sort of epistemology. Mm-hmm. Epistemology is the study of what we can know.
Yeah.
What we can know, right?
Yep.
There are epistemologists who say you can't know anything objectively, right? Others say whatever, right?
But then you go into chaos if you say that.
Absolutely.
You can't know anything. That's ridiculous. That's nonsense. You've entered nonsense.
Well, that's your opinion,
right?
That's
the debate, right? The objectivist lens versus the subjectivist lens.
Right. But if you think objectively that you can't have anything objective, then what can you do? Like you can't be constructive from that point.
Well, we can go into that. I don't know if you wanted to make it more.
We can go into that. We can go into that second. Because I want to let you finish what you were going to say.
Right. No. Okay. So, I'm very much into existentialism, so I won't talk a lot about that now. We can talk about that later. But yeah. So Nietzsche talks about. Again, I'm not super familiar with it, but a lot of people mention the word like the Übermensch and the Untermensch,
yeah,
the superhuman and the subhuman, if my German is correct, the below human, right?
Or the lesser human.
Right, the lesser human, right? Yeah, and so I was reading, even on his Wikipedia article, it says, let me quote exactly.
Yep.
It says use by the Nazis, right? So,
yes.
So even Nietzsche's work was sort of, I don't know if co-opted was the right word. You could say perverted as well, which understandably so. Use words like the superhuman, right? It was co-opted to sort of represent the superiority of the Aryan race, right? By Nazi Germany, who came after Nietzsche, and it mentioned that Nietzsche was not whatsoever anti-Semitic
at all.
Thank you. Yeah, anti-Semitic at all. So right, that's a historical example of an ideology that was maybe misinterpreted. I think in this case, there obviously you could say there is malicious intent involved.
Well, yeah, because like a lot of Nietzsche's work, and again, I've listened to some of what Nietzsche said. There's only so much Nietzsche I can handle in one sitting. Cause
right.
The guy was both in my opinion, a genius and a madman at the same time, which most philosophers are, to be fair. After he passed away, his sister actually took property in a lot of his works and either interpreted or translated some of the things the way that they weren't supposed to be translated, and so the Nazis kind of took those ideas and just ran with them.
Right. Yeah.
And he gets, in my opinion, falsely attributed with he gave rise, he helped the Nazi ideology. It's like, no. But I can see how it can be interpreted as such.
Mm-hmm. Right. So that's what I was. That's what I meant when people who aren't among us anymore, it's easy to misinterpret their point, right? And again, I'm not the expert on his stuff either. I follow more other philosophers more. But through my understanding, what he talks about when he talks about the superhuman is a sort of collective state of humanity where they've sort of rejected things that maybe we can consider outlandish. I guess I'm trying to explain this. So Nietzsche has a famous quote, "God is dead," right?
Yes. And
he had I don't want if I would say a vehement dislike of the Christianity, but he saw it as sort of
he wasn't even an atheist. He was like very anti-theist. Like
right.
If you believe in religion, you've lost more than all your brain cells.
Right. So
is Nietzsche's take is what I'm going to say.
Right. Here. So sort of the origin or not the origin, but the point of that is to say that to think of things sort of abstract as we think of religion, right? Sort of this if you want to talk about like intelligent design or whatever, or like higher powers, even Descartes talks about higher powers. Things of higher powers can create things of lower powers. Things of lower powers cannot create things of higher powers. That's how they prove. Well, it goes into circular regression, but that's how Descartes tries to prove the existence of God, is that we as humans cannot understand infinity, and we cannot understand higher powers, therefore they must exist because a lower power cannot create a higher power.
Right.
That's Descartes. But yeah, he saw those as sort of more like, I guess, vain things, and he sort of wanted to focus more on the potential of the human, so to speak, not in the individualist sense, but more so in the
collective.
Well, it's in the individual sense, but it's not that one person is better than the other. It's that one person has to achieve their greatness, right?
And that
one person has
the
sort of ability or the potential.
That sounds pretty
to rise to unfathom.
That sounds pretty metaphysical to me for somebody who's very anti-theist.
Greatness.
Well, yeah, okay, we're talking about philosophical, but metaphysics doesn't just have to deal with religion, right? There's you can talk about all sorts of other stuff.
That's true.
But yeah, so I can obviously see how that could be misinterpreted to denote the superiority of a specific person, right? Obviously, you could say, "Oh, these kinds of people, they have that potential more than others," right? Which is obviously not what he's trying to say.
No.
Yeah. So this is a long-winded thing. Again, I'm not an expert on him. More so, read other stuff. But I think that's another example of things that historically have been misinterpreted, whether they wanted
the original text or not. Supports
going about the Sith. I think it's sort of fallacious to ascribe a particular viewpoint or a particular sort of stance to all the Sith, at least from a Legends point of view, which is what I'll talk about, I guess, because the Sith that we see throughout Legends are very sort of different in how they interpret things, right? we look at the Sith pre Darth Bane, right? And obviously there's Sith empires, blah blah blah. But the Sith pre Darth Bane are sort of all about the collection of personal power, if you will, right? Sort of the right to rule, in a sense.
They're very much might makes right. Basically, if a person has enough power, they have the right to rule over those less, because it reminds me of, like, I know you guys are talking about Marvel earlier, but it kind of reminds me of the scene in the first Avengers film where Loki talks about human beings' a primal role is they love to be subjugated. They love to look up to a leader to tell them what to do. The humans, they're subconsciously or unconsciously crave. I believe the exact term is crave subjugation.
Right. So, in the Darth Bane books,
he's not entirely wrong.
We'll get into that afterward, but I hear you.
And please interrupt me if you guys want to. I don't want to talk.
I want to give you guys as much talking time as you'd like. That's the point of the oral medium, as we'd say.
Right. So in the Darth Bane books, the leader of the Brotherhood of Darkness, Skir Khan, is the leader because he has the greatest power, right? And because those who wish to challenge him and those who attempt to challenge him have failed to take him over, right? So you could think of that sort of Sith ideology as one of the strongest is the leader, right? Right, sort of like
it's very natural selection.
Yeah, sure, right. And those under, those who aren't as strong either, bend the knee or they're eliminated, right? So if we talk about the idea of the Sith as maybe we can talk more so as a group identity. I think it's seriously lacking when you talk about the Brotherhood of Darkness, because the thing that brings these Sith together is the fact that they're shunned by the Jedi and the fact that they delve into the dark side, right? So the identity of the Sith is one that's created through unity of consequence, so to speak. They're brought together because of the choices they make and because of the fact that they're shunned by others, right? Then we talk about Darth Bane, who obviously has a problem with this, and he creates the Rule of Two, right? With the Rule of Two, it's completely different, wherein every subsequent Sith is inherently and has to be more powerful than the previous one. Why? Because the apprentice dominates when the apprentice
has to end the life of their master.
Right, when the apprentice
or ends up ending the life of their master.
Can you move that a little bit?
Go for it.
When the apprentice is strong enough to defeat the master, then they have learned all the master can teach them, and they must now learn even more, right?
Right.
So I think in that sense, when you talk about the collective Sith, it's a much more stronger identity there, at least when you look at Darth Bane, right? Darth Bane really saw the Sith as sort of this it's a similar thing when you talk about the right to rule or might meets right, but it's not the ruler is the strongest among them just because they show their power, right?
It's more of like a overtime sort of
exactly right. It's a calculated it's almost similar to Nietzsche in a sense, right? It's achieving the full potential that the Sith can be, right? Through progressive and generational improvements upon the Sith, right? And I think originally with the way Darth Bane mentioned it, there is very much that strong identity of the Sith, right? And you can sort of bring the Sith code into,
as a collective,
right?
Yeah.
Why does Darth Bane do the things he does? He, like you said, he knows he is not the Sithari, but he knows he will create the Sithari. That's
the Rule of Two.
That's what's important.
Which is the ultimate destiny of the
exactly.
Sith.
That is of the Sith. Thank you. Exactly. It's music to my ears, right? That's the ultimate destiny of the Sith. Bane is very much concerned with the collective identity of the Sith, whereas the Brotherhood of Darkness is concerned with the individual identity of the Sith, right? So we have these two opposing point of views, and I think the Sith Code attributes a lot more to Bane's sort of point of view, just because it's more structured, right? Then we get into Palpatine and Plagueis to a lesser extent, and I think they sort of throw a wrench into this, right? Because Plagueis is someone who is very much interested in the biological connections of the Force, right? Someone who wants to manipulate the Force to create everlasting life, right? And Plagueis is very much someone who is, I guess, still an adherent of the Rule of Two, so to speak, but maybe is looking to sort of prolong his stay, if you will, stay in this galaxy. We know that in Darth Plagueis he talks about ruling alongside Sidious, having Sidious as the front man, ruler of the galaxy, while Plagueis is content to delve into the more mystical areas of the Force in an attempt to find eternal life. And I assume that for Plagueis, his end goal is to have both of them sort of live forever and cap off the rule of two. And then
Which is very contradictory to the way the Sith have operated for 1,000 years,
right.
Where it's the apprentice sacks off the master.
Right, so even with Plagueis...
Sidious corrected that.
One could say that, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, no, we need to keep going with this.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah, so with Plagueis we already see sort of this change in the rule of two. And then Palpatine, being the absolute shit disturber he is, completely throws it on its head, right? So for Palpatine, as much as he will ascribe to the rule of two, there is no rule of two, there's the rule of one. Palpatine fervently believes that he can obtain immortality and rule by himself, right? Why does he believe that? Because he believes that he is inherently the most powerful, right? So
he almost goes back to the idea of the Sith is the one who holds the most power. He almost goes 180 on the rule of two.
Exactly, right? And then you see him, Palpatine uses the collective Sith in so much as a way as he uses it as sort of a facade, right? He doesn't really believe in that. At least I don't think he does. He just uses it as a way to progressive motives, right? I don't think he believes...
The end justifies the means.
Exactly, right. I don't think he believes in the supremacy of the Sith. He believes in the supremacy of himself.
Palpatine,
exactly, right?
And Vader is simply his hammer in which he keeps the opposition at bay until he can truly ascend what it means to
exactly,
be Sith.
Right. We know when Palpatine first takes Maul, Plagueis sort of raises his eyebrow. He's like, right, and then Palpatine says, "Oh no, he's a Sith assassin," right? And we see throughout the prequels that Palpatine,
no, he's not a Sith. I promise, he's a Sith assassin.
Yeah, right.
And then Dooku tries that with Asajj, and Palpatine's like,
no,
hold on, I've seen this one before.
Yeah, so for Palpatine, the structure is only exists to serve the ultimate purpose of his gain, his personal gain, right? That's all it's there for. So I guess what I'm trying to say is
maybe he is the Sithari because that's
he is the Sithari. It's sort of it's a poetic tragedy in a sense.
Right. He is the pinnacle of the Sith, which eventually ends themselves.
Yeah. The Sith are sort of like the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail, right? It's self-consumption. It eats itself, right? I think that's maybe what Darth Bane didn't think about.
Such a poetic story.
Yeah,
to quote the two of you.
That's why the OT
from
is
last
the best.
From last week's podcast, I believe you two said something along the lines of, the story of Star Wars is on par with the Greek tragedies of old.
Yeah, it is, or the Nordic sagas, you could say, right? It's very much,
and it's had all this time to, in this golden age of storytelling, it's had all this time to ferment.
Like a good wine, it only gets better with age.
Yeah, but not with Disney.
Yeah, so
Luca, I'll let you run it because I want to give Rob.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. I'm sorry. I apologize.
You're good. Don't apologize. You're fine.
Yeah. I
feel like Rob's just like, this is way over my head, guys.
No. I don't
area.
think that at all. Anyone and everyone can talk philosophy.
I agree.
It's not an exclusive thing. But yeah, I think different Sith have different outlooks. I don't think one is objectivist more than the other. I think it's fruitful to talk about the Sith as a collective idea or as an individualist idea. I think in the murky waters we can maybe draw a line there. That's what I think, but I don't think it's one or the other. With the Jedi, it's very much clear cut. It's very much there is the Jedi. We study the mysteries of the Force. With the Sith, it's a little hokey dokey. There's a little bit more.
True.
Right? So yeah, Palpatine, even though he is a Baneite Sith, is very much not what Darth Bane envisioned, right? But as Rob said, he very well could be the unforeseen ultimate result of what that philosophy can produce, right?
Right.
And I'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
Rob, I want to get you on this because I know you've been sitting very patiently as I've just
been enjoying listening. It's fascinating. So I like listening about like legends and stuff like that, and the expanded universe and all that. I think, but personally, I think the meat and potatoes of Star Wars is in the OT and the prequels. I think that's where the story lies. The expanded universe is great, but that's where the story is. Right. That's why I said that Palpatine's a Sithari, because that's where the story ends for the Sith.
Right.
The sequels didn't happen. That doesn't exist.
It's not canon.
That's where the story ends for the Sith. He is the Sithari. He is the pinnacle of what the Sith can be, and he destroyed himself in arrogance. Mm-hmm. So that's my take on it. But credit where credit is due. I love listening to the extent. There is a reason I'm playing SWTOR. It's so fun to learn about. Mm-hmm. It's just I love expanded universe stuff. It's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've just been enjoying listening, to be honest with you.
I want to add one more thing before we close up, because we actually have been streaming for almost 2 hours now, and it is, I think, 12:03.
This is what happens when you bring philosophy into it.
No, I had to.
No, I can't shut up about it. So
but this is why I bring it up. I seduce you into bringing. You are like the mouse, and I'm baiting you with the cheese. But yes, I just want to add one really quick thing. When you guys were both talking about how Sidious being the Sithari, the chosen one of the Sith.
Don't use chosen one.
That's
not it.
That's
not it. No.
He is the
culmination.
He is the Ubermensch of the Sith.
Exactly. Yeah.
The Ubermensch of. Okay, fine. So Palpatine is essentially the Sithari, and that through he is the
culmination.
The culmination of over 1,000 years of Sith legacy and Sith power, and because of that, he ends up destroying himself. And I'll say this. And I've said this to you before when it comes to real life, politics and things like that.
Oh.
The one thing that I've never understood, and I think this applies to Palpatine as well, he destroyed himself because he never thought about human nature in the slightest. He never thought there was a chance in hell that Luke was converting Vader. He saw only one future, and one future only, that Vader converts Luke. Luke takes it. It's almost like someone playing chess. Luke moves to E5. Vader comes in. Luke strikes him down. Good boy, good. And
it's just where I wanted you. Meanwhile, Luke is setting up his bishop to go right across the board into the enemy territory.
Well, I would say it's less Luke setting up his bishop and more Vader as he picks him up and chucks him down a.
Listen, I'm trying to.
No, but I totally get where you're coming from. But yeah, I just think it's really interesting. And like I said, I wanted to kind of have a conversation. I think it's an interesting topic to have. I know we've talked about, Jedi and Sith and, their kind of philosophies behind what they do. But I thought it was an interesting thing when you sent me that Reddit post. And yeah. Do you guys have any final thoughts what we were talking about? Or the episode, 'cause I think we're about wrapping it up. It's been about 2 hours. I know that it's past midnight, so I know you guys gotta...
Is it past midnight?
Yeah, it's like 12:05, whatever it is.
We've done this for way longer,
exactly.
Or at least Austin and I have.
Yeah, we went to go see Rise of Skywalker, ended it, I think, 12 or 1, and then we ended up sitting in my parking lot till 5 a.m. talking about it. I was very unhappy camping the next morning, shall we say.
Yeah.
It was worth it.
Totally worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah... do you guys want to add anything before we sign off?
Sometimes I forget that these podcasts are about Boba Fett.
Well, that's why I said the first half will always be about Boba Fett, and then if it's a really good episode and we can get like an hour and a half, 2 hours just off the episode, we can go there.
Oh no, I just. And then if we can't, I think it's funny.
Dude, I've got topics coming out of my ass for things that we can talk about. Right. So.
Yeah.
Posts for days.
Posts for years.
Months. Decades.
Yeah. I just want to say, I apologize if I misinterpreted some philosophical...
Never apologize.
No, I
assert your dominance.
We don't do that here.
We're all susceptible to it, so please correct me if I'm wrong about anything. Okay. But yeah, except for Austin.
So he's always never be wrong.
Well, I mean, if he watches a 6-hour audiobook, right? Yeah, that has a certain barrier to entry, if you will.
He is above all.
Yeah.
I want you to know, I just stop every 2 minutes to just digest what I was hearing because there was so much like metaphysical talk. I'm like, Oh boy, my degree's in child and youth care, not in philosophy.
But I absolutely want to hear, obviously not now, but Rob's take on sort of the futility, if you will, about disbelief in any objective reality. Because I very much have a stake in that. And you don't have to go
into that now, guys.
I'll put it this way, just like
one or two sentences.
So if you say that there's no objective, like, I don't know, this.
Just keep it for later.
This tree isn't a tree.
You get 1 to 2 sentences, and then I'm cutting you off.
Okay, this tree isn't a tree. Once you make the table out of the wood, you've kind of denied yourself that thought process because you've interacted with the physical world to create something out of the thing that you said doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense. You're like actively what's the word? You're actively being a hypocrite. There it is.
Or irrational.
Irrational. You're being but you're being hypocritical, in a sense. Like you're saying something.
To an extent, yeah.
You're saying something doesn't exist, and then you use that thing that doesn't exist to create something that exists.
Right.
Unless you want to go to the fact that this table doesn't exist.
So hard, okay, you have no idea.
I made this table, but it doesn't exist.
He's up on his feet, folks. He's left.
No. This means I'll stop talking. It doesn't make sense to me.
If you guys want to see a philosophy podcast, like an episode where we just chat philosophy, let me know. Put it in the chat. Hit me up on Twitch. Whisper. Do your thing. All that good stuff. If you want to see a philosophy only chat,
ASMR.
we will. Just so you guys know, we will be doing the 50. We will be doing the 501st podcast next week, and then we have the finale of Book of Boba Fett coming up in 2 weeks. That will be the last of the podcast, and then we will be going to every other week instead of every week.
Until Obi-Wan comes.
Until Obi-Wan or Ahsoka or Mandalorian Season 3 or Bad Batch, because that's supposed to come out in the spring. So March till June. That's 4 months of waiting, but we'll see. But yeah, and then once a new series comes out, we will be going back to our weekly streams. Really quickly, I want to say thank you to everyone who's come out and watched and listened and put up with our absolute nonsense. I know it can't be easy, but we appreciate it. At one point, we had 6 people watching. Nice. It's been going between 3 and 6 the whole night. So I really appreciate it. If you've made it through the entire podcast from start to finish, you deserve a medal. You deserve an award.
Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, we do this because we want to. You guys are here for.
Because
God knows what reason.
I came to your house. I put a gun to your head. Shooty stick.
Metaphysically, I mean, metaphorically. A metaphorical gun. Wink, wink, wink.
Jokes. The gun doesn't exist.
It's not objective. The gun isn't objective. Anyways, we will be uploading this podcast, this episode of the podcast, to YouTube later this evening. So. If you want to go ahead and head over to our other podcast, our other channel on YouTube, it's called the 501st Podcast. I've changed the name because Imperial's Force doesn't really work for YouTube, but it's called the 501st Podcast. Go check it out. I will post a link in chat just now if you're not already subscribed. It is completely free. And if you're not already followed to our Twitch page, which we are streaming off of right now, please go ahead and hit that follow button. Can I get a link, please? Can I do the thing?
Can you do anything right?
I'm genuinely concerned that I'm not able to.
I believe in you.
I don't. I'm glad you do, Rob. Here we go.
Fine, I don't believe.
All right, here's the link to our last episode. Like I said, if you're not already followed on Twitch, please go ahead and do that. If you just want to watch on YouTube, totally fair. All our episodes go up there. Every single episode of the podcast goes up there. And on that note, guys, we are going to head out. Have a lovely evening. Have a lovely morning. Have a lovely afternoon, wherever you're listening. And, yeah. Bye, guys. Take it easy.
Bye.